Now,
on 105.9 FM and streaming worldwide on the WMAL app.
O'Connor and Company.
7:06, and we have hit the ground running here on this Monday morning, getting your week started the right way, and it's a big week. Lots of Supreme Court decisions coming down the pike, plus the Independent Women's Forum Save Women's Sports bus tour is in D.C. tomorrow. In fact, we got Riley Gaines on the program this week as well. She'll be there with Martina Navratilova. You got to get out there for the bus tour and show your support to protect women's sports. It's ourbodiesoursports.com. Also, coming up at 7:35, Hogan Gidley, because we got a debate this week, too. Good Lord, what else can happen this week? And at 8:05, Jenny Terre of the New York Post. I'm Larry O'Connor. That's Mercedes Schlapp. I'm hyped, Mercedes. I'm hyped.
I can tell. This is like post Larry's birthday, so you're
That's
ready
right.
to go.
That's right. I've got all the birthday nonsense behind me. I can wait 364 days now before I have to deal with that again. Joining us right now is Joe diGenova, legal analyst, former U.S. attorney to the District of Columbia. And Joe, I'm looking at the decisions that have come down so far from the Supreme Court. There's a lot that we haven't heard yet, obviously, including the question of presidential immunity. What are you expecting this week from the Supreme Court?
A lot. And in fact, it may go over into July. It's hard for me to believe that given the number of very important issues, constitutional issues, that they can get it all done. The immunity question concerning former President Trump is obviously the biggie. And it will probably be the last decision that they issue, because I imagine they're having quite a tumble over the issue of how extensive the immunity should be. I don't think there's any doubt that after what happened in New York with the corrupt prosecution of former President Trump, that the court was stunned by the egregious conduct of the New York State law enforcement authorities in bringing that case. And I think that case actually affected the thinking of the court on both sides, both the liberal and the conservative.
Interesting.
And I think it made them aware of how important this question of immunity is. And so they're taking their time. Trump's going to get at least a partial win. They're going to rule that there is some immunity. The question is going to be how much. And in order to decide that question, the Supreme Court will send the case back to the circuit, who will return it to Judge Chutkan for hearings, which will put that criminal case beyond the November election.
You've got those cases, and then last week we saw some of these Supreme Court rulings, including that the U.S. citizens don't have the right to bring non-citizen spouses to the U.S. Were there any surprises from last week's rulings on that, as well as the Second Amendment case?
No, the gun case didn't surprise me at all, because what people ignore in the gun case is the facts. The government chose very carefully to appeal that particular case to the Supreme Court, because in that case, the defendant, Mr. Zahini, he actually hit the woman with the pistol. Then he turned and fired that same gun at a bystander who was stepping in to protect the woman. This was a no-brainer. The court was not going to say you couldn't temporarily take that gun away from that person. So the government was very smart. They chose a case with very ugly facts, and that really has no effect whatsoever on the Second Amendment. And all these other Second Amendment cases involving how many restraints you can have on this, that, and the other thing, this is the evolution of the law in an area where, remember, after 250 years of thinking you had the right to bear arms, all of a sudden Congress and all these people start saying, and presidential candidates, no, you don't have the right to carry weapons. And then the Supreme Court recognized that right to carry. And then after that, just like they did in affirmative action, the lefties in the country decided to figure out ways to go after that right again and just sort of piddle it to death. And so I'm not surprised by anything, believe me. In the abortion cases, by the way, the Supreme Court is clearly going to rule in favor of abortion in the case that's pending that says you can't have any abortions except if it involves the life of the mother. They're not going to allow that to be the single limitation. They're just not, because that's not where the American people are, and that's not where the law is.
Joe diGenova is our guest. We're talking about some of the open cases that still haven't been determined. Of course, you just touched on quite a few. What about the January 6th obstruction case? This is this use of a federal obstruction law, obstruct of congressional inquiries and investigations. They've used this to prosecute so many people who found themselves in the Capitol that day walking through a door held open by Capitol Police. What do you think of this one? Because this could have a huge, huge implication, especially coming down right now during the presidential election.
Well, let's remember what this case comes from. Remember the Enron case where these people were prosecuted for destroying documents and the Supreme Court ruled unanimously that the application of the obstruction statute in those situations was not proper, that's not what the law, and they reversed those. Then Congress tried to fix it, and they passed a new law. And what Jack Smith and Merrick Garland are saying, when Congress fixed it, they expanded it beyond protecting documents. And during oral argument, the courts almost unanimously said, what do you mean? There's nothing in this statute that extends it beyond destruction of documents. Why is this attaching to an official proceeding of the United States government? They're talking about investigations, and somebody decides they're going to tear up a bunch of documents that have been subpoenaed, like Hillary Clinton did. And that's what the case is about. So if they follow the oral argument, they're going to rule that the application of this statute to the January 6th protesters and rioters is illegal. It's an improper use of the statute. They have to. The language is very clear.
So, Joe, hold on. This is fascinating to me. So Jack Smith, the current special prosecutor appointed by Merrick Garland, I think illegally, to investigate Donald Trump, he's misusing this obstruction of Congress law that was rewritten after the Supreme Court unanimously overturned the use of that law in application to the Enron case. And remind me, Joe, who prosecuted the Enron case that was unanimously overturned by that Supreme Court?
Jack Smith.
Huh.
Whoa. Wow.
That's fascinating. I just wanted to make sure everybody knew that. All right, go ahead, Mercedes.
No, so we've got these cases going to be determined or ruled this week. Any particular case in addition to the immunity case that you're looking at, saying, okay, this could be problematic for the presidential election?
No, actually, I'm pretty, the social media stuff, whether or not government officials can communicate with social media companies and tell them not to do this or to do this or to interfere with this group. This is a case in which the justices are going to disappoint conservatives immensely.
Really?
Because of the fear of terrorism. Just like they did on FISA, where they renewed FISA for a very short period of time in order to not lose the ability to spy on real terrorists while giving them the opportunity to spy on honest Americans at the same time. Because of that generic fear, they're going to say that if you cannot limit the government to talk to them social media companies, but then they're going to try and figure out a way to limit that. It's going to be completely unsuccessful on the part of the court. They're going to blow it. They're going to allow this interference with constitutional rights to continue, and people are going to be very, very disappointed. There's no way that the Supreme Court is going to tell federal agencies they cannot communicate with social media companies. But that's not the issue. The issue, in fact, this is the false framing of the issue. The issue is, can people in the FBI call up Facebook or Snapchat or whatever the hell the name of all these idiots? I don't do any of this stuff, so I don't know what it is. They can say, these people in South Carolina who are Roman Catholics are really troublesome, and you need to start taking a look at other things that they do, and you need to start blocking their emails and their posts. That's the issue. And that's something the government should never be able to do without a court order. And they don't do that now. They just go and do it without the intervention of a court. If the court were smart, if the Supreme Court were smart and they weren't frightened of the assault on the court that's being done by Schumer and Sheldon Whitehouse and Richard Blumenthal, the court would say, you can do this, but only with a court order. That's what the court should do. Make it necessary to get a court order so that a neutral and detached magistrate can decide if the basis for the interference with the free speech rights is justified. But the court's not going to do that. The court is going to disappoint everybody. This is going to be an awful decision.
All right. Thank you for preparing us for that. We've got more with Joe diGenova, including the debate whether Trump should bring up the Hunter Biden laptop again, now that we have the full truth and even the media is acknowledging it, and revisiting that Charlottesville lie. All that and more coming up with Joe diGenova in just 1 minute. First, though,
you've heard the news. Now get the facts. It's the Vince Colonnese Show, weekdays 3 to 6, right here on News Talk 105.9 WMAL.
When the last time Donald Trump and Joe Biden met on a debate stage 4 years ago, Joe Biden had two major whoppers that he threw out there that, of course, Chris Wallace didn't touch, Kristen Welker didn't touch. They let those lies go by. The first one was continuing to repeat that lie about Charlottesville, that Trump had said neo-Nazis were very fine people. Even the left-wing rag Snopes has fact-checked this now over the weekend and said that's a complete and total lie. The second big lie was that Hunter Biden's laptop was Russian disinformation, thereby deflecting any questions about his family's criminal activities. So, Joe diGenova, listen, you knew at the time about the Hunter Biden laptop because you were privy to it, you had investigated it, you knew all about Burisma. Do you think Donald Trump should bring this up? Do you think because Jake Tapper and Dana Bash aren't going to do it?
Well, here's what I think. First of all, let's look at the two questioners, Dana Bash and Jake Tapper. Two of the most virulent anti-Trump people on television. It is a mortal sin that these two idiots are going to be the moderators in this debate. But Trump and his people accepted it, so now they're stuck with it. This debate is a trap for Trump. It was designed to be a trap. While, as you've noted earlier in the show, while they are pumping up President Biden with drugs and other performance-enhancing substances, which need to be investigated. What's going to happen is the first question from Bash and Tapper will be to Trump, do you accept the results of the 2020 election?
Yeah.
That's going to be the first question they're going to ask him.
Yeah.
There will be no question about the 51 intelligence officials and their letter. There will not be a single question about it. There will not be a single question about the laptop. They cannot address those areas because if they do, two of the things that Biden did, as you've mentioned in previous debates, will have to be dealt with, and they won't do it. Bash and Tapper are not going to address those issues. Now, should Trump do it? My answer is absolutely not, because the minute Trump asks a question of Biden, they're going to cut off Trump's mic and they're going to give Biden a chance to answer. Trump should never address a direct question to Joe Biden. He should simply make statements, get on with it, and get out of there before too much damage is done. I do not like this debate. I have never liked it. I thought it was stupid for Trump to accept the debate on their terms. This is nonsensical. He could have stretched this out, had the best possible terms, because it was Biden who needed the debate. Biden is the one who needs to be on stage to show people that he can function as a human being. And where's the president this week? Where's Biden? He's out of sight. Now, remember, we are living in the post-nuclear age. The president of the United States is invisible for 7 full days. And you're telling me we have a sitting president? If you're an American citizen and you believe that this clown is functioning, you're a nut.
I think that's so well said.
I want that embroidered on a pillow for my living room.
I think it's brilliant. But you brought up the election question. How should Donald Trump answer it? Because as we know, that's going to be one of the areas that the Democrats, that and the fact that Donald Trump is going to move forward with the end of democracy and be a dictator,
right.
And then it's all abortion and it's all January 6th. I mean, those are going to be the big topics.
For Bash and for Tapper, there is no good answer, which is why they're answering it. Donald Trump has made this an issue for 4 years. You can't just walk away from it. So what you say is, it doesn't matter anymore. He's there. I'm here. He's president. I'm not. You just have to move on. You cannot linger on this question. That's why there shouldn't be a debate. You never should have given these people the right to ask him questions. I have a rule. My rule is this: never, ever give anybody the right to ask you questions. Never, ever. And by the way, do you think after what Donna Brazile did at CNN in the last debate that they're not getting questions to Biden? That you think that Tapper and Bash and the thugs at CNN are not communicating with the Biden campaign? Listen, Biden's people have been communicating with CNN since before the debate. How the hell do you think the debate happened?
Yeah.
Thank you, Joe diGenova. Okay, you were listen. This is you're always great every Monday at 7:00. This one goes straight to the Radio Hall of Fame. Thank you for making us look so good.
You bet.
It is 7:23.
Now,
On 105.9 FM and streaming worldwide on the WMAL app.
O'Connor and Company.
We're flying along here on a very busy Monday morning, but get used to it. Every day is busy between now and Election Day, and we're here for it. Coming up at 8:05, Jenny Terre, New York Post reporter on the border crisis, the Biden border disaster. That's coming up at 8:05. I'm Larry O'Connor alongside Mercedes Schlapp. And look who's here, Mercedes, one of your old chums from the Trump White House, the
My
comms
neighbor.
department.
Yep.
One of my favorites, Hogan Gidley. Hogan, always good to talk with you, sir. Thanks for joining us.
Absolutely, Larry. Thanks so much for the time. And Mercy, good morning to you.
Good morning, my dear friend.
Byron York has a phenomenal column today. He has a phenomenal column every day, but he interviewed President Trump down in Mar-a-Lago as a preview to the debate this week. And he talked to him about his first debate with Joe Biden, where he was roundly suggested that Trump interrupted him way too much. And Trump agreed. He said, yes, I did. And then there was a pause, and I'm going to quote President Trump to Byron York. He said, quote, "He lies so much. He's going on. Everything he says is a lie. So I would call him on it, because calling him out 2 minutes later is very tough, because it's a lie. It's a lie. Everything is a lie. I've never seen anything like it." And then he said, "But I agree. I interrupted him too much. The second debate, I handled it much differently." So, Hogan, let's start there as we preview what Donald Trump needs to get done this week, because Biden's going to lie again. So what do we expect?
Well, look, I think this is a unique situation. You have a sitting president of the United States who's going to try and talk about his record, which, of course, is abysmal. So he's going to have to focus on other things. He's going to talk J6. He's going to talk, threats to democracy, that kind of deal. But you also have a person in Donald Trump who was a president as well. And so these two men have records as president. It's not a situation where you have a governor saying, if you elect me, I promise I'll do this. Or, a senator saying, I did this in my state. I promise I'll fight for these types of things as president. These men were president. I mean, they have records of being president. It's really unique. And so the American people remember how much better it was under Donald Trump. I mean, you could afford gas and groceries. You didn't have a wide open southern border. There wasn't crime rampant through our city streets, and there weren't wars breaking out all over the world. Donald Trump sticking on those issues, focusing on what the American people care about. That's what his whole campaign has done to this point. If he does that in the debate, it's going to be a home run.
Yeah, Hogan, it was interesting because our former guest, Joe diGenova, was very, I would say, what's the word I'm looking for? Passionate. Animated about the fact that this is a setup, that this is basically the way the debate is set up with these CNN moderators who have been very biased on covering Donald Trump. And on top of that, you've got, the fact that the first question probably, or one of the first questions you're going to ask is, Mr. President, meaning Trump, would you accept the results of the election? And so how is the president set up, President Trump, to deal with this bias that we're going to see?
Well, very well, because as you know, every bit of data and metrics show that while Trump was president, 93% of the coverage against him was negative. 93%. So he's used to this. Now, is it 3 against 1? Absolutely. You have two hosts that don't like Donald Trump who are obviously biased toward the left, at least a little bit. And they're going to ask those kind of questions of him that most likely are slanted. You're talking about CNN, for heaven's sakes, that cuts away from Donald Trump when he's speaking. They say, we don't even want to hear from this guy. He doesn't tell the truth. we're just going to cut the cameras off. I mean, are they going to do that during the debate? My gosh, they've done it the entire campaign. So there are a lot of questions obviously left unanswered here, and they won't be until the debate happens. But Donald Trump's got his work cut out for him because it will definitely be 3 against 1 in this situation.
Joe diGenova just said, as Mercedes alluded, the first question from Jake Tapper will be, President Trump, do you accept the results of the 2020 election? What should his answer be?
Listen, Joe Biden, you're the president of the United States, and people know it. And the reason they know it is because you've ruined this country. You have destroyed the family. You have made us pay more for goods and services that were a whole lot cheaper when I was president of the United States. Just pivot away from that kind of nonsense and focus on the people, and I think you'll be just fine.
What about the question of drug testing? I know Mercedes is very you're intent on making. You want to know what's going on in Joe Biden's blood system, right?
Oh, I'm sure there's a lot there.
Well, there's not much going on in his mind. There's a whole lot more going on in his blood system.
A lot of chemicals in his body right now. It's
sure.
Well, do you think they can insist on something like that? Should they throw a Hail Mary on it?
Yeah.
I mean, look, he should. I don't think it's going to happen. I think it's a nice little thing to say, though, just to remind people. But they'll pump him through some kind of. They'll pump Joe Biden up with some kind of debate Viagra of some kind, and he'll be jacked up for that hour, and then he'll come back down and be the same guy we see all the time. Listen, Joe Biden's been doing this for half of a century, so. Yeah. We see him, and he freezes all the time, and he stares off, and his cognitive decline, his physical decline is obvious to anyone watching. I would love it if he just kind of stopped mid-sentence and froze, and they kind of went to Donald Trump, and Donald Trump just kind of touched Joe and said, "No, it's okay, Joe. You can finish. I see you've lost your train of thought. Just go right ahead. Keep going." But honestly, I think he's going to be jacked up enough for this where, too many people won't notice his decline. If he does have a freezing moment, though, as you know, it's going to be devastating for Joe Biden.
Yeah. Well, he's resting so much, Hogan, for crying out loud. He's not even in charge of our country during these 7-8 days that he's been gone. I mean, this is unheard of. This is unheard of to have a president just like hiding in Camp David for this long to prepare for a debate.
Yeah, but here's the thing. He's been hiding the entire presidency. I mean, he's been in Delaware a majority of the time fighting with a folding chair. So, he's not even on the job as president anyway. So everyone's freaking out about this 7 days he's going to be gone prepping for this in Camp David. My gosh, he's not on the job every day anyway. I think we kind of all know that.
Hogan, if President Trump calls you up, which I'm sure he does on a regular basis, and said, "Hey, Hogan, come here. Who should I pick as my running mate?" What would you tell the president?
Oh gosh, don't do that to me.
Wait, that's what you'd say to Trump?
Oh gosh.
Yeah, no. Listen. We have so many good people on our side that would run circles around Kamala.
Yeah, it's a deep bench.
No question about it. But deep bench, of course. But you have to ask yourself some questions. What does Trump want out of this pick? I think he wants someone who definitely shores up the MAGA base. I think he wants someone who can go out there and talk to the American people in suburbia about the difficulties they face, that can best relate to them a little bit, soften some edges of Trump, but also carry forth the America First policies that made this country so successful, but not for 4, but potentially 12 years.
Right.
So, you want someone who can work with Congress. You want someone who can fight back against the media. And we've got a ton of those folks. So I think he's got some good picks out there. And, he's kind of getting closer and closer. It seems like he even said he made the pick. He just hadn't told anybody yet. So
it sounds like you just described Mercedes Schlapp, Hogan.
No.
Well, I already said no. So, if he Mercedes is right there, I promise.
This is why Hogan's one of our heroes. Hogan, thanks for joining us.
Anytime, y'all. Have a great day.
A little Hogan's Heroes reference there. Are you a big Wheel of Fortune fan? I can see you and Matt screaming at the televisions, giving away the clue, saying, "Buy a vowel, come on."
No. Sorry. I could see you and Meredith maybe doing that, but not
We've been known to do that. It's not my favorite show, but, now that Pat Sajak isn't there, I'm not going to watch it, and I don't think I'm alone. They named Ryan Seacrest as his replacement because Ryan Seacrest, poor guy, he needed another job. He's, a syndicated morning radio host on top 40 stations. He's the host of American Idol. He's the host of he plays the Regis part on Live with Regis and
he does.
Kathy
It's so
Lee.
funny. I haven't even followed his career since, I don't know. That
like,
daytime TV stuff just doesn't do it.
He does
for me.
everything. And they hired him to do Wheel of Fortune. But apparently, I'm not the only one who's sort of soured on the idea of Ryan Seacrest hosting Wheel of Fortune. So has Vanna White.
Oh.
The insiders are saying that
generational
Vanna
thing.
White doesn't jibe with Ryan Seacrest, and she's considering leaving, even though her contract is up in 2026. So,
well, I mean, you get to a point that, like, flipping those letters, it just, for so long, I mean, don't you want to do something else?
First of all,
don't you want to do something
else? Are you
else?
kidding? First of all, she's like pushing 70. She doesn't
Yeah,
even
she
have to
looks
flip the letters
fantastic.
anymore. She just touches the letter. There's not even any muscle
Whatever.
work involved.
Didn't she turn the letters at some point, or it's
She
always
used
been
to.
the touch
She
screen?
used to, but
See,
they took
there
that.
you go.
Now all she does is touch the screen and it pops up. And it's the easiest job in the world. They tape like 5 of those shows in a day. So she works like 4 weeks at a time when they get like 4 months worth of shows done. It's a great job. So that tells you how annoying Ryan Seacrest must be, that she's willing to give up that job because of him.
Well, I mean, here's what this source. I hate these sources. I think they're ridiculous.
I totally believe it.
Vanna feels that she has put her time in. She devoted her entire life to the show, and she had an incredible run while making a fortune. She knows that the show needs to go in a different direction and appeal to a younger demographic. She wants the show to continue. They will require a younger female host, someone who can be to Ryan what she was to Pat. What about putting Ryan to touch the letters and then get a female host? How about that?
Thank you. See, the problem here is Ryan Seacrest is he's not good at relating and talking to real normal people. He's just used to talking to celebrities all the time.
Celebrities.
And he's a bit of a star effer, you know what I mean?
So
I don't
snob?
see it, that's who he is. He's not
Larry, you'd be a
personable.
great host for Wheel of
I
Fortune.
would love
Great.
to host a game show.
Oh, my
Are you
goodness.
kidding me?
You'd be amazing.
I
You
was-
should definitely put in your
I
application.
was born to do it. Let me just say this. Any show that is looking to appeal to an audience that doesn't want Vanna White is not a show I want to watch. I don't want to be included in an audience that doesn't appeal to Vanna White. So I'm done with them. Done.
That
7:52.
tells you how old you are. That's pretty bad.
Hey.
She's
timeless. She's Vanna White.
You're timeless, Larry. You're
Now it's
timeless.
no, actually I'm a little over time. It's 7:54.
If you're close